I won't tell anyone, I said quietly. The words came out slower than I expected, like my brain was giving me one last chance to take them back before they landed in the air between us. My boss stood 3 feet away from me in the middle of a crowded hotel lobby. Snow was blowing through the revolving doors every time they opened. Travelers were arguing with the front desk. Someone's child was crying. Suitcases rolled across marble floors like distant thunder. But none of that mattered in that moment, because Noelle Ashford was looking straight at me. Only one room left. That was what the clerk had just said. 1 suite, 2 adults. And Noelle had smiled slightly and said the words that had turned the entire room into a test I never asked for. We're both adults, right? The easy answer would have been yes. Most men probably would have said it without thinking, but I wasn't most men anymore. Not after Caroline died. Not after my daughter started watching every choice I made like it was a lesson she would carry for the rest of her life. I met Noelle's eyes. I won't tell anyone, I repeated. Then I finished the sentence she wasn't expecting. That I slept on the couch. For half a second she just stared at me. Then something strange happened. She laughed. Not the polite executive laugh she used in boardrooms. A real one. Quick. Surprised. Almost relieved. Mr. Brennan, she said, shaking her head slightly, you may be the only man in Chicago who just failed the easiest test in the world. I shrugged. Depends on what the test was. Her eyes studied me carefully, then she turned to the front desk. We'll take the suite. That moment would change more than either of us realized. But to explain why I answered the way I did, I have to go back 3 days earlier. Back to the morning that started like every other morning in my life. My name is Joel Brennan. I'm 37 years old. I design buildings for a living. But the most important thing about me isn't my job. It's the fact that every morning at 6:30 a.m. I make pancakes for the most important person in my world. My daughter, Sadie Brennan. 8 years old, artist, professional pancake critic, and the only reason I get out of bed some days. That morning she sat at our kitchen table with her sketchbook while I flipped pancakes. The sunlight coming through the window made her hair glow the same way her mother's used to. Daddy, she said without looking up. Yeah, kiddo. How come you never go on dates? I nearly dropped the spatula. That's a pretty serious question for breakfast. She shrugged and kept drawing. I'm serious. You have friends. You're nice. You don't smell weird like Uncle Mike. I laughed despite myself. Well, that's high praise. But Sadie didn't laugh. She looked up at me with those big, thoughtful eyes that sometimes made me forget she was only 8. Mommy wouldn't want you to be lonely forever. The kitchen got very quiet. I set the pancake on her plate. Sadie. She loved you, she said softly. She did want someone else to take care of you. I crouched beside her chair. Hey. She finally smiled a little. I'm okay, Daddy. But if you ever find someone, I'd like her to be nice. Then she turned the sketchbook around. The drawing showed me, standing next to a woman, but the woman didn't have a face. Who's that? I asked. Sadie shrugged. I don't know yet. But I left space. Just in case. Something tightened in my chest. I kissed the top of her head. You ready for school? She nodded. But as I drove to work that morning, her words stayed with me. 4 years. That's how long it had been since Caroline died. 4 years since a drunk driver ran a red light and took my wife away from us on a random Tuesday. 4 years of learning how to braid hair using YouTube tutorials. 4 years of school lunches and bedtime stories and pretending I knew what I was doing. 4 years of surviving. At Sterling and Associates, I kept my life simple. I arrived at 8:45 every morning, left at 5:30 every evening. No office parties, no drinks after work, no complications. People at the firm called me the ghost. And honestly, I didn't mind. Ghosts don't get their hearts broken. That morning, the entire company gathered in the main conference room. 200 architects packed into rows of chairs. The CEO stood at the front. Noelle Ashford, 34 years old, youngest CEO in the company's history. Brilliant, Demanding, terrifying, people called her the Ice Queen behind her back. She rarely smiled, and when she did, it never reached her eyes. "Today we secured the Pinnacle Technologies project," she announced, "a $50 million headquarters in Denver." The room buzzed immediately. Biggest project of the year, maybe the decade. Her eyes moved slowly across the crowd, then they stopped on me. "Mr. Brennan." Every head in the room turned. "You'll be leading the Denver project." I blinked. 5 seconds earlier I had been invisible. Now 200 people were staring at me. After the meeting I asked for 5 minutes in her office. She agreed. Her office sat on the 42nd floor overlooking Chicago. The skyline behind her looked like something out of one of my own architectural sketches. "Miss Ashford," I began carefully, "I'm honored. But I can't travel for 5 days." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "I have a daughter. She's 8. She's all I have." Noelle studied me silently. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "Mr. Brennan, I didn't choose you because it was convenient. I chose you because you're the best project manager in this company. This isn't a punishment. It's an opportunity." I thought about Sadie, about her college fund, about the leaking roof over our kitchen. Finally, I nodded. "I'll make arrangements." That night I told Sadie about the trip. She listened carefully. Then she hugged me. "Bring me back a snowball," she said, "from Denver." I laughed. "I'll see what I can do." The next night I grabbed coffee with Grant Holloway, the company's COO, smooth guy. Everyone liked him too much. Halfway through the conversation he leaned forward. "Between us, Noelle's in trouble." "What do you mean?" "The board thinks she's too young. If the Denver project fails, she's finished." I frowned. "Why are you telling me this?" Grant smiled calmly. "Because accidents happen. And sometimes, accidents create opportunities." I stared at him. "You're asking me to sabotage the project." "I'm saying," he replied smoothly, "that the board rewards people who help solve problems." I stood up. "I'm not that guy." His smile didn't disappear. "Just remember who your friends are." That conversation stayed with me the entire flight to Denver, and when I arrived at the airport gate the next morning, I noticed something strange. Noelle Ashford was sitting alone, reading an old letter. For 1 second, I saw her wipe a tear from her eye. In that moment, the Ice Queen didn't look powerful, she looked lonely. And 3 hours later, when a snowstorm shut down the entire city, when the hotel told us there was only one room left, when she asked the question, every rumor in the company would twist into something ugly.